It was a hot afternoon in a small, peaceful neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. Cars were moving slowly, birds were chirping, and everything seemed normal. A black SUV was driving smoothly down the main road. Inside the car was Maya Brooks, a tall, confident black woman in her mid-30s. She had sharp eyes, smooth skin, and an air of calm authority. She was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, nothing flashy, and she looked like an ordinary person going about her day. But Maya was not ordinary. She was a special agent in the FBI, trained to handle serious cases, with years of experience and several awards for her service. Today, though, she wasn't at work. She was just heading home after visiting her mother. As Maya stopped at a red light, she noticed a police cruiser 2 cars behind her. She didn't think much of it. She had nothing to hide. Her license, registration, everything was in order. She was driving within the speed limit. But when the light turned green and she started moving, the cruiser suddenly pulled into the next lane and got right behind her. A moment later, flashing red and blue lights lit up behind her car. Maya pulled over calmly, already knowing what this could turn into. This wasn't the first time she had been stopped for no reason. The officer who stepped out was a white man in his early 40s, stocky build, sunglasses on, and a serious expression on his face. His name was Officer Ryan Matthews, a man known in the department for his aggressive style and a long history of complaints about his behavior toward people of color. Ryan didn't recognize Maya. To him, she was just another black woman driving a nice car in a neighborhood where he didn't think she belonged. He walked up to the window with a slow swagger and knocked on the glass. Maya rolled it down and greeted him politely. "Good afternoon, officer. Is there a problem?" Ryan didn't respond with the same respect. He looked into her car, scanned her face, and said in a rough voice, "License and registration. Now." Maya didn't flinch. She reached into her glove compartment and handed over the documents. "Is there a reason I've been stopped?" she asked calmly. Ryan ignored her question. He looked at her license and then looked at her again, as if trying to catch her in a lie. "Step out of the vehicle," he said suddenly. Maya was confused but remained calm. "I'm an FBI agent," she said. "If you need to confirm anything, you can call the local field office. My ID is in my purse." "Step out now," Ryan shouted, cutting her off. "We'll talk about your little fake FBI badge after I check your car." By now, other cars were slowing down. A few drivers were recording the scene with their phones. Maya took a deep breath. She didn't want to make things worse. She stepped out of the car with her hands visible, trying not to look threatening. In any way, Ryan made her stand at the back of the car and started going through her vehicle without asking for permission. Maya said, "Officer, you need a warrant or probable cause to search my car. I'm not resisting, but you're making a mistake." Ryan turned to her angry. "You people always think you can play the system. Driving this kind of car, saying you're with the FBI. I've heard it all." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You people?" she repeated quietly. Ryan didn't respond. He just kept pulling things out of her car, going through her purse roughly. He found her FBI ID and badge, but instead of stopping, he smirked. "Nice try. You can buy this stuff online. Let's go," he said and grabbed her arm. "Officer, you're making a serious mistake," Maya said again. "Just make a call to the FBI. That's all I'm asking." Ryan ignored her and pushed her toward his cruiser. He cuffed her roughly, not caring about the people watching. One woman across the street shouted, "That's not right. She didn't do anything." Maya didn't struggle. She kept repeating, "This is wrong. You're going to regret this." Ryan thought he had everything under control. In his mind, she was just another suspect, someone trying to lie her way out. He was proud of himself, thinking he'd caught a criminal pretending to be a federal agent. He didn't even try to verify her ID. He didn't call it in. He didn't care. His bias had already made up his mind. He shoved Maya into the back of his cruiser and slammed the door. The whole time, Maya sat there with a quiet, knowing look. She wasn't scared. She wasn't even angry. She was disappointed. She had spent years fighting for justice, working with police departments, solving tough cases, and now she was sitting in the back of a police car, arrested by someone who didn't even bother to listen. At the station, the story didn't get any better. When Ryan brought her in, the other officers treated her like a regular criminal. Nobody believed her story. Nobody called the FBI. She was booked, fingerprinted, and put in a holding cell. Her phone was taken. Her ID and badge were tossed aside, like garbage. Hours passed. Maya sat quietly in the small cold cell, thinking about all the people she had helped, all the cases she had worked, all the trust she had put in law enforcement. And yet, here she was, humiliated and treated like a liar, but she wasn't broken. She had something that Ryan and the others didn't: truth, training, and patience. Meanwhile, back at the front desk, a young rookie officer named Jason was watching everything. He had been quiet during the whole scene, but something didn't sit right with him. He had seen Maya's badge. It looked real. Her behavior wasn't like someone trying to escape or lie. She had warned them politely. She had even asked them to confirm her identity. Jason decided to check her ID properly. He ran her name through the federal system, and within seconds, her profile popped up on the screen. Special Agent Maya Brooks. Active status: Federal Bureau of Investigation. Jason froze. His heart dropped. He turned to his supervisor and showed him the screen. The supervisor's face turned pale. "Call the FBI right now," he said. Inside her cell, Maya didn't know it yet, but things were about to change. And Officer Ryan Matthews? He had no idea that the woman he had just humiliated was someone far more powerful, respected, and protected than he could ever imagine. He thought he was in charge, but karma was already walking his way. The police station was buzzing with the usual noise of phones ringing, radios crackling, and officers talking among themselves. But inside the walls of the precinct, a tense atmosphere was building around one unexpected event: the arrest of a woman who claimed to be an FBI agent. That woman was Maya Brooks, still sitting in a small, cold holding cell with metal bars and a hard bench. She was calm, but tired. The hours had passed slowly, each minute feeling heavier than the last. Maya had been treated like any other suspect, handcuffed, fingerprinted, and questioned in a way that didn't match her real status. The booking officers had barely looked at her FBI badge and ID, dismissing them as fake or irrelevant. They treated her as if she had no special rights or connections. They told her to keep quiet, refusing to make calls or verify her identity. Maya remained patient, knowing that the truth would come out, but it was hard to stay calm when she was humiliated in front of strangers and ignored when she needed help. Meanwhile, back at the front desk, the young officer Jason was growing more uncomfortable. From the moment he saw Maya, something felt off. She had said she was an FBI agent, and unlike the other officers who had dismissed her, Jason had noticed the professionalism in her voice and behavior. She didn't act scared or angry. She stayed respectful and polite, even when she was treated unfairly. Jason decided to take a closer look at Maya's ID and badge. He carefully examined the FBI emblem, the holograms, and the details on her ID card. Everything looked genuine. He sat down at a computer and typed her name into the federal database, a step he wasn't supposed to take without permission, but he felt it was the right thing to do. Moments later, her profile appeared on the screen in bright letters. Special Agent Maya Brooks. Active status: Federal Bureau of Investigation. Jason felt a chill run down his spine. He looked around to make sure no one was watching and quietly told his supervisor about what he found. The supervisor, a stern-looking man with graying hair, immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. Without hesitation, He picked up the phone and called the local FBI field office. At the FBI office, agents were in the middle of a meeting when the call came in. The agent on the other end listened carefully, growing more concerned by the second. Maya Brooks was one of their best agents, a highly trained professional who had worked on important national security cases. The idea that she was being held in a small police station under arrest was shocking and unacceptable. Within minutes, a senior FBI team was assembled. They gathered their badges and identification and rushed to the police station, determined to clear up the mistake and secure Maya's release. Their arrival sent a wave of tension through the precinct. Officers who had earlier ignored Maya's claims now stood at attention, unsure of what to say or do. Maya was brought out of the holding cell, still handcuffed but composed. The senior FBI agents introduced themselves to the precinct captain and demanded that she be released immediately. They showed their own badges and explained who Maya was, emphasizing her role and the importance of respecting federal authority. Officer Ryan Matthews, who had arrested Maya, suddenly found himself in an uncomfortable position. He had acted with confidence just hours before, but now he was facing the consequences of his actions. He tried to defend himself, explaining that he had followed procedure and didn't know who she really was. But the FBI agents were not convinced. They questioned him carefully, pointing out the mistakes he had made and the disrespect he had shown. The situation attracted attention beyond the police station. News reporters learned about the incident and quickly arrived to cover the story. Cameras flashed and microphones were pushed forward as journalists asked questions. The headline soon read, "FBI agent wrongfully arrested by local police." People were shocked that someone working for the highest law enforcement agency in the country could be treated so poorly. Community members, especially in the Black community, expressed outrage. Many shared their own stories of unfair treatment by police officers. Civil rights groups organized protests outside the police station, demanding justice and accountability. The city's leaders were forced to address the issue publicly, promising an investigation into the officers' conduct. Inside, the police department internal affairs began an official inquiry. Matthews was placed on administrative leave while the investigation continued. The complaints against him for racial profiling and misconduct were re-examined with new urgency. The department faced pressure to show that it would not tolerate racism or abuse of power. Through it all, Maya stayed silent in public, refusing to speak to the media. She trusted the process and believed that the truth would win in the end. Her focus remained on her work and on ensuring that justice was served, not just for herself, but for others who had suffered similar treatment. In the days that followed, support for Maya grew stronger. Fellow FBI agents stood by her, offering encouragement and solidarity. The public began to see her not just as a victim, but as a symbol of strength and dignity in the face of discrimination. Officer Matthews, meanwhile, found himself isolated. His colleagues avoided him, and the weight of the scandal pressed down on him. The arrogance he had shown during the arrest was replaced by anxiety and regret. He began to understand that his actions had consequences far beyond what he had imagined. Maya's story became more than just about one arrest. It sparked conversations about race, power, and respect in law enforcement. People asked hard questions about how officers are trained, how bias affects their decisions, and what needs to change to build trust between police and the communities they serve. Though the ordeal was painful, Maya emerged stronger. Her courage and professionalism under pressure earned her respect from many who had once doubted her. She showed the world that standing up for what is right requires patience, strength, and faith in the system, even when the system seems broken. In time, the investigation would bring consequences for those responsible. But for now, Maya's focus was on healing and continuing her work to make the country safer for everyone. She knew that change was slow, but she was determined to be part of it, one step at a time. This was not just a story of humiliation and injustice. It was a story of hope, resilience, and the power of truth to overcome prejudice. The news spread fast. What had started as a routine traffic stop quickly became a story that caught the attention of people all over the city, and soon, even the whole country. The headline was clear. A black female FBI agent had been wrongfully arrested by a local police officer. The reaction was strong and immediate, especially among communities who had long faced similar unfair treatment. People wanted answers. They wanted justice. The morning after Maya Brooks was released, the streets near the police station were filled with voices demanding change. Community members gathered, holding signs and chanting slogans. Their anger was mixed with sadness and frustration. Anger at the injustice, sadness for what Maya had endured, and frustration that stories like hers kept happening again and again. Civil rights activists organized the protest quickly, using social media to spread the word and bring people together. The protest was peaceful but powerful. Maya was not there to speak, but her story inspired thousands. Many who had experienced racial profiling and police harassment saw themselves in her struggle. They marched through the city streets, calling for accountability from the police department and reform in how officers are trained and monitored. At the police station, the pressure was mounting. The precinct captain held emergency meetings with officers and staff. He knew the department's reputation was at stake. Internal Affairs opened a formal investigation into Officer Ryan Matthews' conduct. This was not just about the arrest anymore. It was about addressing a pattern of behavior. Matthews was ordered to stay away from his duties while the investigation was ongoing. His usual confidence had vanished, replaced by worry. Old complaints against him began to resurface. Several former colleagues and citizens came forward with stories of similar encounters, moments when Matthews had shown aggression or bias. These stories painted a picture of a man who used his power without respect or fairness. Meanwhile, Maya returned to work at the FBI. She didn't let the incident stop her. If anything, it strengthened her resolve. Her fellow agents stood behind her, offering support and encouragement. Many said they had seen her handle difficult situations with grace and professionalism, and now the public was starting to see it too. The FBI took the incident very seriously. Senior officials made it clear that no one should be mistreated, especially by law enforcement colleagues. They worked closely with the local police department to ensure Maya's rights were protected and to push for changes in the way officers interact with citizens, particularly those from minority groups. On a larger scale, the story sparked a conversation about systemic racism and the need for police reform. Media outlets debated the issue. Experts and activists appeared on TV to discuss what the arrest revealed about bias and discrimination within law enforcement. Many pointed out that Maya's experience was far from unique. It was a symptom of a deeper problem. Politicians also got involved. City leaders promised to review police policies, increase training on racial sensitivity, and improve accountability measures. Some proposed new laws to address racial profiling and ensure better oversight of police officers. The public watched closely, hoping for real change this time. Back in the community, the protest movement grew. People held forums and town hall meetings to share their stories and demand justice. Maya's name became a symbol of resilience and courage, a reminder that even those who serve the law are not immune to prejudice. Her story encouraged others to speak out and stand up for their rights. At the police station, the investigation progressed. Matthews was questioned about the arrest and his past behavior. Under pressure, his attitude shifted from defiance to defensiveness. He tried to explain that he was just doing his job and didn't intend to harm anyone. But his words couldn't erase the video footage, witness statements, or the growing pile of complaints against him. The Internal Affairs team found evidence that Matthews had violated department policies. He had failed to properly verify Maya's identity and had acted on bias rather than facts. His treatment of Maya was deemed unprofessional and disrespectful. The report recommended strong disciplinary action. The case was handed over to the police chief and city officials for final decisions. Many expected Matthews to be fired. Public trust in the police department depended on how the leadership responded. Meanwhile, Maya remained focused on her mission. She continued to work on investigations, knowing that her example could inspire change not only within the FBI but across all law enforcement agencies. She met with community leaders and activists, sharing her experience and listening to their concerns. Though she faced moments of frustration and pain, Maya never lost her calm. She knew that true strength came from patience and dignity, not anger. Her story was not just about one wrong arrest, it was about fighting a system that often failed to protect people like her. In the months that followed, the city saw small but meaningful changes. Police officers received additional training, community police relations improved in some neighborhoods, and oversight committees became more active. Maya's story was used as a teaching tool in academies, reminding new officers that every person deserves respect, regardless of their background. The case also helped raise awareness nationwide. Other cities began reviewing their own police practices, inspired by the outcry over Maya's arrest. It became part of a larger movement calling for justice and equality. Through it all, Maya stayed humble. She never sought the spotlight or personal revenge. Instead, she chose to be a voice for those who couldn't speak, a symbol of hope in a difficult time. The arrest had been humiliating, but it did not break her spirit. Instead, it showed the power of resilience and truth. The karma that awaited. Officer Matthews was not just about punishment. It was about the awakening of a community demanding better, fairer treatment for all. And for Maya, it was the start of a new chapter, one where her courage and professionalism would help bring lasting change to a system in desperate need of reform. After the news of Maya Brooks's wrongful arrest spread widely, the situation began to change in ways that no one at the police station had expected. The local community, the police department, and even government officials started paying close attention. The story was no longer just about one officer and one woman. It had become a symbol of a larger problem: racial bias in law enforcement and the need for real change. Inside the police department, the atmosphere was tense. Officer Ryan Matthews, once confident and proud, was now isolated. His colleagues kept their distance. Some whispered behind his back, others avoided eye contact. Matthews was officially on administrative leave, and every day brought new news of the investigation digging deeper into his past conduct. Several complaints and reports from previous years were reviewed carefully. Patterns began to emerge. Instances where Matthews had treated black citizens unfairly or used excessive force. These findings added fuel to the public's anger and strengthened the case against him. The Internal Affairs Division, known for its thorough investigations, was determined to get to the truth. Meanwhile, Maya was busy with her work, but the incident stayed with her. She was praised by her fellow agents for the courage and dignity she had shown. The FBI leadership publicly supported her and committed to working with local police to improve relations and prevent future incidents like this. Outside the police station, community leaders organized meetings with the police chief and city officials. They demanded transparency, accountability, and concrete reforms. Many spoke about the long history of racial profiling and discrimination in the city. They shared painful stories of friends and family members who had suffered similar treatment. Their voices were strong and united. The city government responded by announcing a new task force dedicated to police reform. The task force included members from the community, law enforcement, legal experts, and civil rights advocates. Their mission was to study the problem, recommend solutions, and oversee changes to ensure fairness and justice. Public forums were held, where citizens could express their concerns and offer ideas. Maya attended some of these meetings, not as a speaker, but as a listener, learning about the community's experiences and hopes. Her presence inspired many, showing that even someone from within the system could empathize and support the fight against injustice. At the same time, the investigation into Matthews continued. The evidence against him was strong. Witnesses came forward to testify about his behavior, including several black citizens who had been mistreated. His failure to properly verify Maya's FBI status was seen as a clear example of his bias and negligence. The Internal Affairs report recommended that Matthews be fired and face possible criminal charges for abuse of power. The police chief agreed, understanding that keeping him on the force would damage public trust even more. Matthews, facing the reality of losing his job and reputation, grew defensive. He claimed he was being unfairly targeted and tried to argue that he had done nothing wrong. But the facts and testimonies were overwhelming. The city's mayor also stepped in, expressing support for the police chief's decision and promising that no officer was above the law. As this was unfolding, Maya's story reached beyond the city. National media picked up the case, sparking discussions about racism in law enforcement across the country. The incident became part of a larger conversation on police reform, racial justice, and how to build better relationships between police and the communities they serve. Many activists cited Maya's experience as proof that even highly trained professionals are not immune to bias and discrimination. They argued that without proper training and accountability, police officers could continue to harm innocent people, damaging lives and trust. At the FBI, leadership used the incident as a teaching moment. They increased training on dealing with local law enforcement and provided support to agents facing similar challenges. Maya became an informal mentor to younger agents, sharing her story and encouraging them to remain strong and professional, no matter the circumstances. In the community, the protests continued but shifted focus. Now, people were not just reacting to one incident, they were pushing for lasting change. They wanted better training for officers on racial sensitivity, independent oversight committees with real power, and policies to prevent racial profiling. The police department also began to implement new programs aimed at rebuilding trust. Officers attended workshops and community events to listen and learn. Some residents reported improvements, saying they felt safer and more respected. The process was slow, but the signs were hopeful. Maya herself remained humble. She knew the fight was far from over, but she believed that change was possible when people came together with courage and determination. She kept working hard on her cases, proving every day that professionalism and respect should be the foundation of all law enforcement. The story of her arrest, the public outcry, and the subsequent investigation became a case study in how accountability and courage could bring justice. It showed that no one should be above the law and that everyone deserves dignity and respect. Officer Matthews' fate was a warning to others who might abuse their power or let bias guide their actions. The message was clear. Times were changing, and those who failed to adapt would face consequences. In the end, Maya's experience was painful, but also powerful. It opened eyes, sparked important conversations, and helped build a path toward a fairer, more just system. Her courage and calm in the face of injustice inspired many, and her story reminded everyone that standing up against racism is not just necessary, it is vital for a better future. The days following the decision to fire Officer Ryan Matthews were filled with mixed emotions in the community, the police department, and in Maya Brooks' life. The case that had started with a simple arrest had grown into a powerful example of what happens when courage meets injustice and the demand for change becomes louder than ever. Maya, now fully cleared of any wrongdoing, was back at work in the FBI with a sense of calm and determination. She knew her journey was not just about her personal experience, but about the bigger picture, the fight against racism and bias in law enforcement. Many people reached out to her, offering support and sharing their own stories of struggle. It was clear that her experience had touched a nerve and connected with people from all walks of life. Her FBI colleagues continued to stand by her, showing respect and admiration for her strength. Maya became more than just a fellow agent. She became a symbol of resilience and hope. Some of the younger agents even asked her for advice on how to handle difficult situations, especially those involving bias or discrimination. She took this role seriously, mentoring others and encouraging them to stay strong and professional no matter the challenges. At the same time, the police department was undergoing significant changes. The city had committed to reforming its police force, motivated by the public outcry and the lessons learned from Maya's case. New policies were introduced that aimed to prevent racial profiling and ensure officers respected the rights of all citizens, regardless of race or background. Training programs were overhauled, focusing on cultural sensitivity, de-escalation techniques, and community engagement. Officers were encouraged to build relationships with the communities they served, moving away from an us versus them mentality toward cooperation and understanding. The Independent Police Oversight Committee, formed as part of the reform, was given more power to investigate complaints and recommend disciplinary action. This new level of transparency helped restore some trust between the police and the public. Matthew's firing sent a strong message throughout the police force. Discriminatory behavior and abuse of power would not be tolerated. His case was studied in police academies as a cautionary tale, teaching new recruits the importance of fairness, respect, and accountability. In the community, the response was hopeful but cautious. Many people remained wary, remembering years of negative experiences with law enforcement. Yet the changes brought by the reforms sparked a sense of optimism. People started attending community police meetings more regularly, sharing their concerns and ideas in an effort to build better relationships. Maya also began speaking publicly, though she was careful about how and when. She wanted her message to be clear. Change was possible, but it required persistence, courage, and the willingness to listen and learn. Her story was a reminder that standing up against injustice takes strength but can lead to real progress. Nationally, Maya's experience contributed to the growing movement for police reform and racial justice. Other cities looked to her story as an example of what can happen when a community demands accountability. The conversation about systemic racism in law enforcement was gaining momentum, fueled by cases like hers. Beyond the police and community, the FBI also took steps to support its agents better. They improved training on dealing with bias, increased resources for agents facing discrimination, and reinforced a culture of respect and professionalism. Maya's leadership helped drive some of these changes, showing that even one person's experience can influence an entire organization. As time passed, Maya's life settled into a new normal. The trauma of her wrongful arrest slowly faded, replaced by a deep sense of purpose. She continued to work hard, knowing that her efforts contributed to a safer and more just society. Her relationship with the community grew stronger as she took part in outreach programs and educational initiatives. She wanted young people to see that they could overcome obstacles and make a difference, no matter where they came from. The story of the racist cop who humiliated and arrested a black female FBI agent, only to face karma later, became more than just news. It became a lesson in resilience, justice, and hope. It showed that even in the face of deep-rooted prejudice, truth and courage could shine through. Maya's experience inspired many to believe that change was possible. It reminded people that standing up to injustice is never easy, but it is always necessary, and in the end, it is that fight that shapes a better future for everyone.